안녕하세요. 주식한스푼입니다. 이번 영상은 원래 어제 올린 영상 뒤편에 올리려 했는데 개인적인 일정 때문에 시간이 안 맞아서 오늘 따로 올리게 됐습니다. 내용은 미국 언론 CNN이 한미 조선 협력에 대해 어떻게 보고 있는지를 다룬 영상입니다. 투자 판단에 도움이 될 수 있을 것 같아서 추가로 공유드립니다. 참고로 CNN은 트럼프 대통령에게 비판적인 시각을 유지해온 언론사고 폭스뉴스는 트럼프를 지지하는 성향이 강한 매체입니다. 폭스뉴스에서도 한국 조선소에 대해 긍정적인 보도를 했지만 이번엔 반트럼프 성향의 CNN 보도를 기반으로 AI 번역을 돌려서 영상 올립니다. 국내 언론보다 더 디테일하고 진지하게 다룬 내용이라 꼭 한번 보시길 추천드립니다. 하나오션 관련해서 투자하시는 분들께 좋은 참고가 되길 바라며 주말 잘 마무리하시고 다음 주에도 모두 큰 수익 나시길 기원합니다. 감사합니다.
The moment you step inside this cathedral of cranes, the planet's biggest shipbuilding complex operated by HD Hyundai Heavy Industries in Ulsan, South Korea, and on nearby Goje Island, a harbor where giants are born, run by Hanwha Ocean, you get the feeling you're in a city of ships.
We're here at the world's largest shipyard, and it is wild. Colossal ships everywhere.
This single site builds about 10 times as many large commercial ocean vessels as the United States builds in a single year.
대한민국이 성장 발전해왔고
And South Korea's president Lee Jae-myung says his country can help, quote, make American shipbuilding great again. President Trump has taken notice.
They build them very well in South Korea. They're also thinking about coming to our country with some shipyards to start us on the process of building ships again.
What we're looking at right now are about 20 vessels that are under construction all at the same time. Hyundai tells us this year it's expected to deliver 50 ships, all from this colossal facility in Ulsan, South Korea.
Why it matters, China now builds warships at a pace the U.S. cannot match. It has a navy that's larger, backed by a network of sprawling shipyards. The U.S. has just 4 public shipyards left, down from 11 after World War II. Shipyards back in the U.S. are jammed. Too few docks, too little capacity. So now, the U.S. Navy is sending some of its ships here to South Korea for essential repairs.
What's the most difficult part of all of this?
The propeller or propulsion system.
This is the 3rd Navy cargo ship Hanwha's repaired, the USNS Charles Drew. HD Hyundai just started work on another Navy ship a few weeks ago. Danny Beeler is the principal engineer on the Charles Drew.
Me, as the person that's worried about all the maintenance on the ship and fixing things, I can get a lot more done in a shorter time period in a shipyard like this as opposed to one back home.
The before and after difference, rust to renewal. It's work to keep the U.S. fleet running overseas. Analysts say South Korea's shipbuilders are known for finishing on time and on budget. One of their secrets? Components from nearby supply chains.
Here in Korea, we can get that in 1 day or 1 hour, the maximum 1 week.
하나오션은 기본적으로 이
Hanwha Ocean also has a supply chain established within 50 kilometers of the shipyard, which enables us to get necessary material or manpower from our established relations with companies to quickly repair a ship.
A next step in the partnership could be South Korea building, not just repairing, U.S. Navy ships. But U.S. law would need to change. Foreign companies are barred from constructing American warships. The Navy Secretary says he is open to a change.
In the short run, I have got to get hulls in the water. And so that means all options are open. So we have to look at foreign and domestic.
Hanwha already runs a shipyard in Philadelphia and wants to grow. Hyundai, too, is looking for a bigger U.S. foothold. The question now, could parts of America's warships be built here in South Korea as the U.S. tries to revive a once mighty shipbuilding industry with South Korean help?
What about construction of U.S. Navy ships? Is that the goal?
Yes.
Yes.
Mike Valerio, CNN, Ulsan and Goje, South Korea.
We just went on a reporting trip to 2 gigantic shipyards here in South Korea. Can you tell us about them and what we saw.
Well, first, I think it might be the reason we went on this trip, Mike, was because the U.S. has fallen way behind in shipbuilding in the world, right? The U.S. just doesn't turn out commercial ships like they do. And we know that their military shipbuilding program is, as the Navy Secretary told Congress earlier this year, a mess.
It's in trouble.
It's in trouble. We're 3 years behind in all our naval shipbuilding programs.
But then we have these shipyards here in South Korea that are like a different planet. And we saw that giant machinery, like the Goliath cranes.
Cranes that are, what, 20, 30 stories high, lifting hulls, lifting ship superstructure.
One of the shipyards we went to, HD Hyundai Heavy Industries, it's the biggest shipyard in the world. And they told us they're manufacturing 50 ships, 50, from that site for this calendar year. That's roughly 10 times more than what the U.S. produces every single year. Hanwha Ocean, south of there, also cranking out a huge number of ships. So why does this matter? There's a question that's being asked on both sides of the Pacific Ocean, and it's, can South Korea help make American shipbuilding great again? U.S. shipbuilding is falling behind, and it's also falling behind China.
Way behind China. Late in the last decade or early this decade, the Chinese naval fleet has surpassed the U.S. naval fleet, right? And China has how many more shipyards than the U.S. does? It's exponential, right? And they're turning out new warships faster than we've ever seen. Some American warships are more advanced,
Sure.
but when you see some of the warships China's turning out now, the Type 55 destroyer, a heavier warship, vertical launch cells, missiles, right? You know, so Chinese technology, Chinese naval technology is way up there.
So President Trump and the Pentagon feel the urgency to catch up with these Chinese numbers.
It's a necessity. We know that studies have told us that the country, in the event of conflict, the country with the biggest naval fleet usually wins the naval battle. It's about numbers more than technology. That's where South Korea says they come in. They can help build warships faster, on budget, on time, and get them into the U.S. fleet, if they're allowed to. Earlier this year, as the tariff negotiations were going on with Washington, South Korea's president came to President Trump and said, look, we know you have shipbuilding problems. We can help with that. We have the expertise and the capacity to turn out ships or to even train your folks to get shipbuilt, to improve U.S. shipbuilding, to get that done.
What did we see in terms of capacity? Not just commercial ships, but we saw a U.S. Navy ship at Hanwha Ocean shipyard because of capacity in the United States.
Right. So that ship, the Charles Drew, is a U.S. naval supply ship. It needed maintenance and overhaul, right? And in 3 months, they're basically going to scrub off all the rust. They're pulling the inside machinery out. They're reworking that. They're refining it. They're going to put it back in. 3 months, they're going to be done. And this ship, which coincidentally they call the Costco of the Navy, because it has everything from Tomahawk missiles to food, SpaghettiOs.
Cans of peas.
I guess. Cans of peas, right.
Why can South Korean shipbuilding do these huge projects on time and on budget?
Well, the people at the shipyard tell us that we're able to do this because about 90% of all the parts we need are within 50 kilometers of our shipyards, right? Now you contrast that to the United States, where our shipyards are obviously on the coast, east, west, Great Lakes, right? But it takes
time.
Because the manufacturing base in the United States is scattered across the continent, right?
And these shipyards have been neglected. There are so many fewer shipyards now in America than there were after World War II, since the 70s.
Right. The U.S. just doesn't build commercial ships anymore, as we mentioned earlier. 5 a year? 5 ocean-going commercial ships a year. The Koreans churn out many times more of that. But what that means is, in these shipyards, they can toggle their workforce back and forth between commercial ships and warships, right?
President Trump and the U.S. Secretary of the Navy both agree that shipbuilding in the United States has been neglected. How can South Korea help? There are laws that essentially say a foreign company cannot build a U.S. Navy ship.
That's correct. Trump just signed a deal with Finland to build 4 U.S. icebreakers, U.S. Coast Guard icebreakers in Finland. That could serve as a template for what might happen here with South Korea building Navy ships, although some different laws apply.
So the thinking among analysts we speak with is if South Korea can potentially partner with the U.S. to help the U.S. build warships, that can help the United States maybe begin to close the gap with China.
Right. And you're seeing South Korea taking really positive steps to do this. They've recently bought the Philly shipyard, right? They're telling us, yeah, we can build ships for you there. We can build warships for you there. Those would be American made, right?
Yeah. Based on what you saw from these 2 gigantic shipyards here in South Korea, do you think this could be a hugely exciting chapter if the partnerships between South Korea and the United States with shipbuilding were to expand?
Oh, I think it could be. And I think, it has to be because the workforce is here. The knowledge is here. America is actually having a hard time finding people to work in shipyards. They're going to have to find the right people to make them. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have to pay them well and bring them in. And frankly, they're going to have to train them, right?
Korea has that know-how.
Yeah, they do. At Hyundai Shipyard, they told us the average person, the average worker there has 16 years with the company.
Right.
16 years of experience, and that's the average one, right?
Right, unlike some other shipyards that have very quick turnover.
Right, right.
Well, Brad, we will see if South Korea can help make American shipbuilding great again. Thank you so much.